And as the Trump administration continues to carry out what the president promised all along his campaign trail to be the biggest deportation in U.S. history, more questions are now growing around how this will impact industries like farming, construction, and hospitality. Now, these are industries that rely heavily on non-citizen and sometimes undocumented workers, and a hit to these fields would be felt by Americans all across the country. Now, in an article titled "Keep America Working, a Trump Visa Can Save Our Economy," Javier Palomarez suggests a solution called the Temporary Residence for Undocumented Migrant Professionals Visa, or the Trump Visa for short. Now let's bring Javier on now. He's the founder and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council. Javier, great having you on today. Let's start first with last week. We saw this new rule going into effect, which requires all non-citizens above 18 years of age to carry proof of their status at all times. Now, along with the mass deportation that's currently underway, what kind of an impact are we already seeing on industries like farming or construction?
It's important to note that we're already in a mass shortage. There are massive shortages across cornerstone industries. By way of example, in the technology sector, we're short almost 1 million workers as we speak. In the construction sector, we're short about 500,000 workers. In agriculture, right now, because of the labor shortage, we're losing over 10 million tons, not 10 million pounds, 10 million tons a year of unharvested food products that could be put on the American table, but they cannot be because of the labor shortage. Manufacturing, 20% of our plants are not at full capacity. So we're already in a crisis mode. Mass deportations have the potential to exacerbate the situation and make things much worse for the American economy and the American family.
All right, so then let's talk about this solution you're proposing, this Trump visa, because we do currently have the H-2A non-immigrant visa, which is designed to help with some of this agricultural worker shortage that we're seeing. What makes your suggestion of a Trump visa different?
I think we need what we already have. This is a problem, a challenge that the American economy, American business, and the American people have been facing for half a century now. We need a solution that is bold, business-minded, and that is distinctly American. And that's why I'm proposing the temporary residence for undocumented migrant professionals, the Trump visa. The Trump visa would allow individuals who are already in the country or are looking to enter the country to do so legally, but under strict vetting, clear employment verification, and on a temporary basis as our economy needs them.
Javier, talk us through these specifics here. How exactly would these applicants be funded, and how is this program going to be funded?
Well, what we're proposing along with the Trump visa is that recipients of the visa would pay, depending on the industry and on their salary, would pay anywhere from 10 to 20% in taxes. Therefore, it would become a self-funded program. It would not cost the American people any more in terms of tax dollars. It's a self kind of paying program, and it's something in keeping with what President Trump is all about. It's finding efficient and effective programs that don't add to the deficit, that don't add to the tax bill, but in fact pay for themselves. So in creating this program, the Trump visa program, part of it would include a tax that gets levied against any recipient that is using the Trump visa to work in any of the industries I mentioned.
Well, Javier, we've also been hearing the president saying, hey, he is in favor of immigration legally. He wants hard workers and pro-American immigrants to come into the country. Would you say that this Trump visa you're proposing is perhaps a potential first step for some of these workers to perhaps gain citizenship in the future?
Absolutely. I'm calling on President Trump to do what Obama couldn't do, what Bush couldn't do, what Biden couldn't do. We need a bold solution, and we need a bold leader who's willing to step out and start to solve this thorny problem that has become now a crisis, not only for the American economy, but for all American families. It's important to note that, this visa, this Trump visa, would not offer immediate citizenship to the recipient. It would not offer government benefits to that recipient, nor would it offer them voting rights. It would offer them an opportunity to continue to work, continue to contribute to the American economy, pay taxes, and therefore help fund the program in and of itself.
Well, Javier, you mentioned in your article as well that over half of agriculture workers are undocumented. Would you say that these types of numbers point to a more fundamental issue within our current food and labor systems?
It certainly does. We are an economy that relies on cornerstone industries like construction and agriculture and manufacturing. And in those industries, there is a very high percentage of immigrant labor. And much of that immigrant labor is, in fact, undocumented. And so, what we need is to figure out how to balance the needs that our nation has for security and safety, but at the same time balance that with our economic and commercial needs. We have to keep the economy going. Mass deportations are aimed at very rapidly identifying and removing those who are here to do us harm, and I'm completely behind that. That is exactly what we need to do. But there needs to be the balance of getting rid of the bad while we maintain the workforce in those industries that are critical and cornerstone industries that are necessary to keep, the American economy moving forward and American families fed and sheltered. These are those industries, and in those industries, you find a very heavy percentage of immigrant labor, oftentimes undocumented. This offers them a way to continue to work, but only if they're vetted, only if they can prove that they've got an employer, and they would not get government benefits, they would not be allowed to vote, and they would not get immediate citizenship. I'm talking to the actual laborers. In my association, we represent everything from multi-billion dollar, multinational corporations down to small businesses that employ immigrants. And I talk to those immigrants, and frankly, they would love a president who is bold enough to just take this thing on, grab the bull by the horns, and start to move this thing forward on behalf of the American economy, the American family, and certainly on behalf of those immigrants that want to come out of the darkness, want to earn their way, and want to be part of the American dream.
Javier, on the topic of balance, I think it's also really interesting that you mentioned in your article this idea of the danger of politicizing productivity. Do you find, when we're looking at lawmakers on both sides of the aisle right now, do you think that they might be getting a bit caught in the weeds here instead of being able to look at this issue from a broader perspective?
Absolutely. And I think that's the hope that remains here with Donald Trump. Listen, I'm a known Democrat, uh, but I will readily admit that we need bold solutions. We need somebody who's willing to take that risk, who recognizes that, this problem is going to require somebody with the courage to not politicize this thing, but be pragmatic about it. Do the right thing by the American people, the American economy, and find the solutions that are not going to be the panacea that either the right or the left, the Republican or Democratic parties need. It's going to be the solution that the American people need, that they're asking for. And I think this is the president who could do it. Obama didn't do it. Bush didn't do it. Biden didn't do it. If there was a president who could do it, I dare say it would be Donald Trump. This is an American-sized problem that requires a Donald Trump-sized solution. And this is the time to do it, in my opinion.
All right, great getting your insights today, Javier Palomarez. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.